So in this session, we're going to look at risk management. Well, why do we want to look at risk management? Well, because we've finished the plan, we've looked at the costs, we've looked at the resources, we've looked at the schedule. But before we complete the PMP, it's worth considering what potential risks there are in the project. So let's have a look at the definition. So the APM define a risk as the potential for an action or event to impact the achievement of the project objectives. So either we're going to be late, or we're going to be overspent, or poor quality, or we're not going to realise the benefits. So what's risk management? Well, risk management is another of these processes, a bit like stakeholder management. It's a process that allows the individual risk elements and the overall risk to the project to be understood and managed in a proactive way, optimising the benefits from opportunities and minimising threats. So from there you'll recognise that risks are both opportunities and threats. So we're project managers, so we would like a process. So what's the process going to be? Well, it's very similar to the one we saw for stakeholder management. We need to initiate the risk management process, we need to identify our risks, we need to assess how important they are, we need to plan how we're going to manage those key risks, and then we need to implement those responses. So let's look at the first box, initiation. Well, that's about writing a risk management plan. And that's not the risk register, that is our strategy for how we're going to manage risks in this project. So it defines the processes, the roles and responsibilities, and the templates that we're going to use. So what our risk register will look like, for instance. So having defined our approach to risk management, the next thing is to identify risks. So several ways we could do that, as you can see here. Brainstorm is the most common. Get a group of people together, shout out the risks in a creative way. Checklist is more structured. So in a checklist, we go through the risks and highlight those risks that are specific to the project, tick them off basically. You can think about copying your last risk register as a bit of using it as a checklist. Prompt lists are headings. So some organisations have commercial, safety, technical as headings, and they're reminders of areas that we need to look at. Legal, you know. In fact, PESTLE, you could think of as being a prompt list for risks. Assumption analysis, one of my favourites. So I've assumed that this camera is rolling at the moment. So if it's not rolling, that's a potential risk. So anything that you've assumed to be true, if it's not actually true, then that's a potential risk. We can do things like Delphi. Well, Delphi is consulting particular experts about what the sources of risks are. So we use a wide range, document reviews also. We use a wide range of techniques to understand what the risks are. But is every risk equally important, or some risks more important than others? Well, most of us use a probability impact grid where we look at how likely the risk is going to be and what would be the impact if that risk were to occur. Assuming that we've got some reasonable mitigations in place first. So here's a chart showing the different risks. So which is the biggest risk that we see here? Is it A, B, C or D? Well, to me, the one that's the most significant risk is the one that's very high probability and very high impact if it happens, which is risk B. So that's our top risk. So let's take an example. Say you're going on holiday and you park your car at the airport and your airport may be stolen while you're away on holiday. That's a potential risk. What would we do about it? Well, we've got some different strategies we could follow. We could avoid that risk altogether. We could get someone to give us a lift or get a taxi. So that means our car isn't at the airport and it won't be stolen. We could transfer the risk to somebody else. So we could pay someone to guard our car while we're away on holiday. And that would mean that if our car was stolen, we got compensation. Or we could buy insurance. Most of us have comprehensive insurance. That's transferred the financial risk associated with your car being stolen. We could reduce the risk, so you could leave it in a secure car park. You could put one of those crook locks on your steering wheel. That reduces the likelihood of that risk happening. Or we could just say, well, you know, I quite often park my car at the car park. It's quite secure. I'm quite happy with the risk, and I'm just going to live with it, and that's accept. So that's threats. Opportunities, you don't avoid opportunities, you exploit them. You don't transfer the best opportunities, we share them with partners. You don't try to reduce your opportunities, you maximise them or enhance them. And you don't accept your opportunities, you just ignore them, you reject them. So most people structure their risks in a simple risk register. So here's an example of a risk register. We put the risk ID, the description of the risk, the assessment of probability and impact, the owner of the risk, quite often a category if we've used a prompt list, and then what action we're going to take. So that's a really simple risk register. Other organisations have slightly more complicated ones. So what are the benefits of risk? Well, we know we've got a systematic approach. We know there's mechanisms in place to manage the risk. We know that we've got proper contingencies. We know the risk we take with the projects we manage. We know we've got a proper process in place. But most importantly, we're much more confident if we've addressed the risk that we're going to deliver the project to time, cost and quality and deliver the benefits that the sponsor wants. So that's our 10-minute overview of risk management.